Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Bower.
And I'm Joey Marino. Welcome to Actor Chats.
This week we have our second part with Tim Phillips.
If you don't know Tim Phillips, he's an on-camera acting audition coach in Los Angeles. He has a great book, Audition for Your Career, Not the Job.
In this segment, Tim talks about acting in close-ups, auditioning, and relationships to objects.
Actor Chats with Tim Phillips. There was something you said, I think, in the book, where you said, and this is interesting, it says something about on camera, I don't know if it's something like dare to be or something of that nature, be boring. Boring.
Yeah.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, if you've done your work,
yes,
the kind of work that I teach, then you will be armed and you've humanized and you go in. When you feel like you were the most boring actor in the history of mankind on camera, you probably were on the money. That doesn't mean be boring.
Yes.
What I'm saying is if you feel like, oh my God, I wasn't doing anything. And then you look at what you've done and you go, oh my God, it's all there. Most actors overact for camera.
Nate Caudry, who we interviewed before this, he's a wonderful actor. He was on Harry's Law.
Sure.
And he at some point, just said, if you're on camera or whatever, he just looked at me and he looked at Jeff and he said, you are enough.
That's right.
You are enough.
That's absolutely
and
right.
that was really well said.
Right. And the you is created by the text.
Right.
So it's that part of you.
That's you turned a certain way.
That's exactly what Duvall says.
Oh, okay.
You bent. He talks about it that way. You bent. It's you.
So you don't become
bent.
the character people like to say, but it's you.
No. It's you bent. If you try to become a character outside of yourself, that's impossible. Think about it. Where do you go if you're that?
Right.
Well, you have to be there. So it starts with you. So it's those parts of you.
Did you have any favorite actors? Duvall,
oh, God,
obviously.
Don't do this to me.
Oh, no, but I'm just
But
curious. It says a lot about a teacher. Strasberg used to actually ask that back in the day. Part of the interview process, he used to say, who's your favorite actor? And they said, Paul Muni, the early work, or something like that. Why but it said something about you in a way.
Yeah, it does. And he was using it to just put you on the spot
I guess
he
so.
could crawl inside you and manipulate you probably. It's based upon performance. How far back do you want me to go?
I don't know, just whoever you want.
I think when you look at Oscar Werner in The Ship of Fools, Emil Jannings, and I forget the name of the film now, but they were actors way ahead of their time because they were so human.
Yes.
There wasn't the gestures.
The presentational
presentation. There was no presentational stuff. There was really an interior of that. And then you move on into some of the really great actors that came out of the schools in New York with Stella and Lee Strasberg and Sandy Meisner and Bobby Lewis and all of those folks. I mean, there was really some fine performances. Then you have stage performances and then you have film performances. So it's really hard. I think. Everybody talks about Brando. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see enough of him on stage.
I would have loved to seen Streetcar, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we can watch him on film, and he was so raw.
Yes.
That it was, and you never could catch him acting, in a way. And I think that's probably the template for most guys.
Right.
As long as they're not trying to imitate Brando.
But still, people just
sure. Yeah.
Brando said an interesting thing. Just because they call action doesn't mean you have to do anything.
That's exactly right. Yep. And he also said, I'll do it 5 different ways than you choose.
Right.
Arrogant about your craft, which is another Duvall quote. Be arrogant about your craft.
And protective of it in a way.
Oh, yeah. Protect your craft. It's the only thing you have other than time. 2 things that you have in your life is your craft, other than you, is your craft and time. Everything else is temporary. He went on to say wives will come and go.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Lawyers will come and go and all that kind of stuff.
You know what I find so interesting about Duvall? Many things, but somebody was saying about retiring for him, and he's still he has machismo. He still has that guy.
Yeah.
He still has, and he said to retire. You could argue this is my best year ever, and Duvall seems to be like a guy who's always becoming.
Yeah.
Always becoming, and that is, that's passion still for the work and your life.
Yeah, I think
I find that fascinating.
I agree, and I mean he'll die, in front of the camera, or die on stage, or fall off a horse again. But he is always becoming. There was a film, Get Low. Amazing performance in that. There's another one that just came out recently, A Night in Old Mexico.
Yes.
And he said to a student of mine who was actually in the film with him, he said, this really is me. So expressing his point of view about life and humanity and what he believes it should be, and what a man should be, I think is what drives him to keep on going.
It was funny, in one interview I recently saw of him, the interviewer had interviewed Gene Hackman and said, he got competitive. He goes, well, what did Gene say?
That's right. Well, in the early days, do you know who?
They lived together.
Well,
Hoffman?
Three
Dustin
of them.
Hoffman.
They were roommates in New York.
Gene
Can you imagine?
Hackman
Gene
and
Hackman,
Duvall.
Dusty Hoffman, and
Three people, in a way, by typical standards, highly unlikely to succeed, and all did beyond the wildest of imagination.
So, but I think one of the actors that he admired most in his career was Gene Hackman. That he respected his opinion.
Yeah, I think it came out in just that one phrase, and I think Gene Hackman seemed to be one of those guys who could almost take any line and make it work.
Oh, absolutely.
As given.
He refused to be untruthful, and I think that's what all great actors learn eventually, or they don't become great, is they just refuse to be untruthful.
And I just thought of something about Duvall and Gene Hackman that they have in common, a certain real quality. You always remember that laugh, that little chuckle.
Yes.
And you, and you always remember that, and that makes them really human.
Yes.
Because not everybody actually laughs on camera. Right. Like any actor, you sometimes a phony laugh could be the death of it, but that little chuckle comes out, and you immediately feel like you know them or know their humor.
Well, they allow you to see the inside of them. Once again, just because they refuse to be untruthful. They won't schmact. You can't make
no
them
schmacting allowed.
No schmacting. They won't allow that to happen. And when you're auditioning, that's what they need to see is truth, because most actors are not truthful in the audition.
How important is the first moment?
Absolutely crucial. According to the articles that you read in Backstage and all of that, is that actors lose the audition in the first 10 or 12 seconds. Because they're not specific in the first moment. And if you don't know who you're looking at, if you don't know what they mean to you, if you don't know what you want from them, then they're not there. People say, well, the reader's not supposed to give you anything. If you create the reality, you can work off of an empty chair. You don't need anybody there, actually. You can create that object once again. And it's how you feel about them. What I teach is what you would call them. I've gotten even more specific since I've written the book.
Wow.
And it's an expletive. I mean, who am I looking at? Asshole. I don't have to act much. I have to tell you the story. One of the chapter titles in my book was going to be, you don't have to act if you know who the bitch is.
Got a lot of heat for that.
Yeah. Stephanie said, no, we're not doing that. But it's in the book, I think, somewhere in the book. It's you don't have to act if you know who the bitch is. But that's literally the hub of all acting. If you create the reality,
emotional?
Yeah. If you create everything is. If you create the reality of that object, and if everything is emotional, here. I'm getting too technical, maybe.
No, not really. No, you can't get too technical on this show.
Okay, good. Well, an event happens in your life, and it comes with an emotion, because we're emotional animals. An event and emotion comes together, and it becomes knowledge. And what is knowledge? It's an experience. That's why when you Sherlock Holmes, you experience the script. You don't just understand it.
Not just
Understanding
thinking.
is not necessarily real. Experiencing is real.
Ah,
So we can both go to the same movie and have two different experiences, but both of it is real. Do you follow me? Because you had an emotional response to it, and I had a different emotional response to it. So when you put that together, then we usually comment on that in a cliche
okay.
first, and then we talk about it.
Like
So
a
what I
cliche
teach is
would
a
be
cliche.
like a...
Boy, that sucked.
Right. That was great. That
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that was great. It was great. It was great. Do you understand? We don't know any facts, but we can see how I or you or he feels.
Interesting.
How was the film last night? Fucking amazing. Oh, really? Wow, I should see it. What's it? Why? What did you really? Then we have the story.
Yeah, sure.
So when we're handed scripts, we're handed the story first, and we're handed words first, which is not human.
Oh.
We have to experience.
That's why we
it.
have so much trouble with it.
That's it. Well, it's not human.
Yeah.
Did you memorize your lines today, guys? No.
No. I'm terrified that you bring this up. I'm sweating.
So, but that's the point, is that we don't memorize our lines of life. We talk about things are provoked from us, ideas that we have, memories that we have, and then we start to talk about it. Stories about Duvall and stories about this and your interviews that you saw. And,
Yeah.
all of that. That's all provoked from us. Well, if we're handed these 3 or 4 pages of sides, and we have to make them human, and if the human development is an event happens, which is a picture, comes with an emotion, becomes knowledge, meaning experience, then I have to work from the pictures. So the writer is giving me pictures, suggestion of pictures. I saw you at the World's Fair last night. Okay, I can say that line, but I have to be at the World's Fair. And it takes a millisecond to create the Ferris wheel. Do you understand?
Yes.
And I can describe it. I can describe the weather. I can describe it all. And it takes one photograph.
One thing, the most common direction that I hear in a set, just throw it away.
That's right.
Just throw it away. How does that apply to making things specific and the ability to throw away, which I don't think is necessarily always easy?
It isn't easy, but one of the reasons it's difficult is because you don't know what that really means. Throw it away most often means that you're really acting it. You're making it more important than it really is.
Muscling it.
That's because you don't have a picture.
Oh.
So you're in a sense schmacting because you don't have a picture, but you know it's supposed to be important, so you're just going to say it in an important way. I saw you at the World's Fair last night.
That sounds like those old movies.
Well, guess what? That's exactly what it was. Because I don't get lost in that history, but this was based upon old acting, which was gestures. They didn't have rehearsal back in the day.
Right, they still don't,
Yeah,
but
well,
now
yeah.
you're expected to really be good.
That's true. Back in the day, they would go and practice their gestures because everything was lit by candles. And that's where, lighting was foot candles. Now it's lumens, but it was foot candles forever, based upon the candles at the foot of the stage. So they had to practice gestures so people could see them in the balcony and throughout. So, and that kind of behavior, stayed forever and ever and ever, and then it began to slowly dissolve. But because of the technical changes, especially in filmmaking, do you understand? The behavior has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. HD, 2 inches forward, 2 inches back, you're out of focus. The focus puller is going to go crazy. The DP is measured, So you have to, the stillness, and if you watch all the TV shows and you watch their close-ups, stillness. Everything is in the eyes.
What about eye contact? Because at first it really, like if I'm talking to you, I am actually looking at you in the eyes, but sometimes in real life you wouldn't spend too much time looking into a guy's eye. If I'd punch you, or if it was a girl, you'd kiss her in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But so what about that? How is that really different in film than real life? Because you do have to hold that eye line, and sometimes that takes practice.
Yeah,
don't
it
you
does.
think?
And that's why the object has to be defined by you very, very specifically. Then there's no reason to look away. Because if I know what I want to get you to understand about me, that allows me to have the improvisation to see if I'm getting it. Do you follow?
Yes.
So that opened that up. But also, your close-ups are shot forever and ever and ever on your close-up in this scene. And then they shoot over your shoulder to the other person's close-up. But it's edited differently.
Yeah.
So every time you look away, the editor's going to go to somebody else. And after a while, you don't have any close-ups.
Right.
So close-up is a technical thing. It's not real behavior. And that's what actors have to understand.
And I think they get squeamish about that because, what was startling to me was when I studied with you and just it was so, you learn some things pretty quickly in terms of, first you learn, what am I doing with my mouth?
That's right. What am I doing?
I'm mouth acting. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, Michael Caine talks about it in his video of face acting, and it's true. And he claims that before every close-up, what he does, he puts his hands on both sides of his face, and he goes, relax face, relax face, relax face. And that's why he looks at times, God, this guy is really boring, but you can't take your eyes off of him.
That's true.
Because he really knows.
And
so
he's able to really
knowledge.
Maintain that eye contact and stuff. And
well, he also understands the intimacy of camera.
Yes.
What happens is you begin to be rewarded, and after a while, you will not look away. Because
unless you're looking for something specific.
Well, but then you're looking at another object, and that's
another object. Like,
exactly.
For instance, I was talking, we were at a coffee shop, and I was talking to a guy once, and he was talking about Clooney in some movie that he loved, George Clooney, and I was remembering for some reason how, and what you had said about an object, and I remember specifically, he had a cell phone, and he talked, and then he pulled the cell phone away from his ear, and he looked at the phone, before he put it up in his pocket. But most beginning actors, they would deal with the phone almost in a mechanical way, and they would just close it and put it, and you wouldn't know. But him looking at that phone created a relationship to the person on the other end and the way he felt about them.
Absolutely.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. That's the genius of acting. That doesn't mean you have to make it important.
Yeah, he did it very well.
Yes.
He's awesome.
Yeah. And that comes from Meisner. If you want to link it to a technique of acting, it's called the independent activity. There's the doing of a task to an object that has an inherent difficulty, and sometimes the difficulty is emotional. So that's a training in Meisner that allows you to deal with objects that more important than ever these days. And an object can be a memory. You can look away, trying to figure out where did Janice go to school? Wasn't she in Miami? Was she, and that
but that's
creates
specific.
That's
exactly not
right.
looking at the person, but then you're looking.
That's exactly right.
And
what you don't want to do is have your eyes roll around or dart back and forth. All the things that we actually do in real life.
Yes.
You don't want to do in your audition. And also, if you don't know how to do a close-up, which is your audition, then you don't know how to do a close-up. No one is going to take the time to train you to do your close-up. There's too many actors out there that already know how. So you can lose the audition just by having bad camera fundamentals, which is really criminal.
That is.
Because I see some really good actors, and it's, what are you doing? And they're, what? I said, well, watch, and I play it back for them, and they go, what the hell? Just like what you said, what am I doing? Am I chewing something? Yeah, the scenery. So
yeah.
Yeah, and people will they'll roll their eyes, and if you're playing a teenager, rolling your eyes is part of character.
Yeah,
so
Winona Ryder did it a couple of times, and it was very specific and cool because it was part of character.
Yeah. So, and if you have two actors that are darting their eyes around, or there's dry eyes and all of that kind of stuff on the set, then they just go back to the master of the two-shot. But a lot of people are not even bothering to do two shots anymore. They're doing the establishing shot and boom, right to close-ups.
Yeah, close-ups.
So close-ups are more important now than they have ever been.
Yeah.
Ever. And available light and HD and,
And the funny part about it, sometimes on the set they do, they'll be sometimes gunning 3 cameras.
Sure.
And then, but when you watch it, say, why did we do that? Because they're only showing close-up in the final edit.
I was talking to a producer a few months ago, and I said, from your point of view, why are so many close-ups? And he said, feelings, and more feelings. That's what it's all about, is tugging at the heartstrings of the audience. Go figure.
And getting in there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What about, you had an interesting idea about beat, the term beat. Mm-hmm. And I like that. Yeah. I really like what you had to say about that.
What did I say?
It was something like, it was because sometimes I try to do too much in terms of and it was just for one reason. There was something that,
Oh,
that
I know
sticks out in my mind.
Because there's several
and-
different kinds of beats.
Yeah,
You're talking about the beat alone.
The beat alone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Only actors wait for the scene to start.
Ah.
We human beings are in one scene after another, after another, after another, from conception or birth, depending on your point of view, to death, and the hereafter, depending on your point of view. But the bottom line is just one scene after another. It's only actors that can be in neutral and then have to do a scene, which is not human. So humanizing helps that.
Yes.
Do you follow? But a beat alone, you have three choices: pray, figure out, or recall. And if you can do that to an object, you're golden. Then people will feel like they've invaded your reality as opposed to waiting for you to have one. You don't want the audience or your fellow actor to have to wait for your reality.
And you've already probably lost the audition.
It's done. First 10 or 12 seconds. That's what they say out there in the real world. Yeah, beat alone, pray, figure out, or recall. And you can do that with no dialogue at all for a very long time, and people will watch you. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I was watching Krapp's last tape. It was done in New York Classic Stage Company, I think, is who were doing it. And in the beginning, Krapp is getting his office ready, and he has this huge ring of keys, and he's trying to organize the audio tapes that he has. He calls spools, and this actor really did it for about 15 minutes, not one word spoken. Mm. And at the end, he finds the spool, and he lifts it like this, and he goes, spool. It was so beautiful. And we felt like we shouldn't be there. It was so intimate. The way he was dealing with this, brilliant. It was brilliant. I wish I could remember the actor's name. He was really brilliant. But I think that's what it all should be, is we, the audience, should feel like we shouldn't be there.
There was we had listened to something beforehand. There was an interview on Charlie Rose, which I found fascinating, and it was the director of Crazy Heart, and he said he went to the Robert Duvall School of Acting, and Maggie Gyllenhaal was on, and Jeff Bridges, and I think both of those actors embody, I think, what you teach.
Yeah.
And they were talking about this idea of going from 0 to 0 in the scene. They did their work in the scene, but Maggie said she felt like the scene could go like, it was written so well, it could go like 50 different places and land little differently, you know, with a great actor. And what did you think about that concept?
They were referring to what Bobby talks about in terms of starting on the 0 and ending on 0. He also says between point A and point B, the scene starts at A and ends at B, and nothing is precious in between. So we have happy accidents, and that's where the brilliance happens, is the accidental moments. It's true when you're in rehearsal for theater as well, and sometimes those accidental moments settle in and you can repeat them.
Right.
But in film, you have no rehearsal basically, and the rehearsal is take 22, take 25, let's shoot it again, let's do it again for some folks. So that's really where you get your rehearsal.
They used to talk about the illusion of the first time was a famous thing said, and then now I think spontaneity and being, they always talk about, being in the moment, being in the moment, but I think very often people don't teach one how to be in the moment.
Right.
And I think that's some of the stuff that you're teaching.
Well, being in the moment is not knowing that you're in it.
Right.
And that's the accidental stuff. Do you understand?
Yes.
When you look at it after it's done, and you look at the rushes, you look at the dailies, or you go back to Video Village and you watch it, you go, oh, wow, that was cool. That was a cool moment.
It's an embarrassment of riches.
Exactly. But when I said to Duvall, I said, I'm not going to be acting much anymore. I'm going to be teaching. And he said, well, teach him to talk and listen. Whatever happened to talking and listening, Timmy? Whatever happened to that? Teach these kids to talk and listen. All they want to do is act.
Interesting. And he said something about talking and listening being in the beginning and the end of it.
That's it. Once you've done your homework, you've crafted it. Now let's just talk and listen. Let's just have a conversation. The intimacy of camera has changed in the last 20 years even. I mean, we can talk about Brando, and we can talk about all those brilliant actors back in the day. But it's more specific now than it's ever been. And the audience is more sophisticated and more discerning. They can see a phony moment a mile away. Yeah, so a lot of great acting is actually happening on cable. I mean, not The Good Wife is all stage actors, all trained stage actors. Right. They really know how to do their close-ups. They understand camera very well. But there's so much really good work
True
being
Detective.
done. Oh my God! I mean, just stop with all the schmacting and let's come on. You're not impressing anybody. So just get down and do it. And those boys did it.
And the getting down and do it. I think the challenges of the actor are even different. All the media that they have, everybody's doing web series and everything. How do you think that, from your students and from what you hear, how has the business changed over the years, and how do actors adapt to that?
I don't.
Or do you think it has?
I try not to think about the business at all.
Okay.
And just concentrate on the artist, no matter where they are, what the medium is.
Right.
But the more, the better. The more vehicles, the better. People were all worried about cable. Thank God for cable. People were worried about this. Oh my God, Amazon is now great. I don't care. Charlie Rose is going to start making. I don't care. The more work, the better.
Charlie Rose presents.
Yes. But you have to get out there and you have to compete. But you have to be prepared. That's what I can't get actors to understand. I mean, sometimes I'll have a class and there'll be 3 or 4 people here, and it's like, why? What are those other actors doing out there? They're waiting for the phone to ring? You can't do that. You've got to compete like a son of a bitch.
So that was our second part with Tim Phillips.
An actor prepares. Stanislavski gets a plug.
Right, you got to be ready, always ready. Be sure to tune in next time when Tim talks about James Dumont, being angry on camera, and advice for young performers.
This has been Actor Chats with Tim Phillips.